The Morthani Supremacy had fought 28,164 wars. They had won every single one. Not most, not almost all. Every one, 28,164 conflicts spanning 11,000 years of recorded history, against species that outnumbered them, against empires that outgunned them, against coalitions that combined the military power of dozens of civilizations. None of it mattered, the Morthani won. They did not win through superior technology. Many of their enemies had more advanced weapons. They did not win through numerical advantage. Many of their enemies fielded larger fleets. They won through doctrine, through discipline, through a military philosophy that treated war as a science and victory as an equation to be solved. The Morthani War Doctrine had 3 axioms. First, know your enemy completely before engaging. Intelligence gathering was the primary phase of any Morthani operation. They studied their targets for years, decades, sometimes generations. They mapped every weakness, every vulnerability, every flaw in their enemy's military, economy, and psychology. Second, never commit forces until victory is mathematically certain. The Morthani did not gamble. They did not take risks. They calculated probability to 7 decimal places before ordering a single ship to engage. If the odds of victory were not 99.99999% or higher, the operation was delayed until they were. Third, total annihilation of enemy combat capability. The Morthani did not accept surrenders. They did not leave enemies alive to rebuild. They destroyed military infrastructure, industrial capacity, and command structures with systematic precision. When the Morthani finished a war, the enemy ceased to exist as a fighting force, permanently. This doctrine had carried them across 40,000 light-years of territory. It had consumed 63 sentient species. It had created the largest continuous empire in galactic history. Warlord Thresh-Vor had personally commanded 47 of those victories. He stood on the bridge of the command vessel Eternal Triumph and reviewed the target data for what would be victory number 28,165. The target was a species called humanity, a single-world civilization in the Orion Spur, pre-warp by most classifications, limited interstellar presence, a handful of colonies in their own star system, no significant military fleet, no known alliances, no strategic value. The Supremacy had encountered humanity 17 years ago when a Morthani deep-range survey vessel detected their radio emissions. Standard procedure dictated a long observation period. The Morthani had spent 17 years studying humanity, gathering intelligence, building the certainty matrix that would precede the attack. The certainty matrix was complete. Victory probability, 99.99999%. The operation was approved. 17 years of intelligence had produced a portrait of humanity that was, by Morthani standards, unremarkable. The species numbered approximately 11 billion individuals concentrated on a single planet. They possessed nuclear weapons, limited spaceflight capability, a small orbital infrastructure, no energy shields, no faster-than-light travel, no interstellar military capability. Their military history was extensive but primitive. Humanity had fought thousands of wars against itself. The Morthani analyst had studied every recorded conflict. The conclusions were consistent. Humanity was aggressive, creative in their violence, adaptable in combat, but fundamentally limited by their technology. The analysts had rated humanity as a Tier 3 threat, low category, the kind of species that the Supremacy consumed routinely. There had been 41 Tier 3 conquests in Morthani history. None had lasted more than 72 hours. Thresh-Vor had allocated 72 hours for the operation. His fleet numbered 4,000 warships. Each vessel averaged 12 kilometers in length, armed with plasma lances, kinetic penetrators, and matter disruptors. Crewed by 15,000 Morthani soldiers bred for combat. Total military force, 60 million individuals. Against a species with no interstellar fleet. The fleet was assembled at the Morthani border. Final preparations were underway. Weapon calibration, crew readiness assessments, attack vector calculations. Thresh-Vor's intelligence officer, Commander Krelvin, delivered the final briefing. Humanity has no capability to detect our approach. Their sensor technology is limited to their own star system. Our fleet will transition from deep space to orbit around their planet before they are aware of our presence. Estimated time from detection to total military neutralization, 4 hours. 4 hours, Thresh-Vor repeated, for a Tier 3 species. Yes, Warlord, their defensive infrastructure is minimal. They possess orbital weapons platforms, but these are designed for defense against minor threats. Aster. Oid deflection, satellite interception. They are not designed to engage a fleet of this scale. Our models indicate they will be destroyed within the first 90 seconds of engagement. And their ground-based weapons. Nuclear arsenals, primarily ballistic delivery systems. Our point defense will intercept 99.7% of launched weapons. The remaining fraction will be insufficient to cause significant fleet damage. Thresh-Vor nodded. The numbers were clean, the probability was certain. This would be Victory 28,165. Routine, unremarkable, another entry in the record of Morthani perfection. Deploy the fleet, he ordered. Attack velocity, direct approach to the human homeworld. 4,000 warships entered transit. The fleet dropped out of transit exactly as calculated. 4,000 vessels emerged from the void simultaneously, arranged in the standard Morthani attack formation. A sphere of warships enclosing the target planet, every angle covered, every escape vector blocked. The human homeworld appeared in the center of the formation. Blue and white, clouds swirled across its surface. Cities glowed on the night side. Beautiful in its way. Irrelevant. All ships commence bombardment, Thresh-Vor ordered. Target orbital infrastructure first, then ground-based military installations. Standard conquest protocol. The fleet opened fire. 4,000 plasma lances struck the planet's orbital infrastructure simultaneously. Human satellites, weapons platforms, communication relays, space stations, all targeted, all engaged. The first salvo hit. Thresh-Vor watched the tactical display. The plasma impacts registered. Energy dispersal patterns appeared on the surface of the human platforms. Then something happened that his models had not predicted. The platforms did not break apart. The plasma lances, each one capable of melting through a kilometer of armor, struck the human platforms and stopped. The energy was absorbed, dissipated, redirected. The platforms glowed briefly with absorbed energy, then discharged it harmlessly into space. Every single platform without exception. Analysis, Thresh-Vor said. His voice was flat, controlled. Krelvin was already working. His hands moved across his console with a speed that betrayed urgency. Warlord, the human platforms are generating an energy absorption field, not a shield, a sink. They are not blocking our weapons. They are drinking them. Drinking them. The field converts incoming energy to a stored form. Our plasma lances are effectively feeding their defense system. The more we fire, the stronger they become. Thresh-Vor processed this. The intelligence reports had mentioned no such technology. 17 years of observation, 17 years of data collection, and the humans had hidden this. Cease plasma lance bombardment, Thresh-Vor ordered. Switch to kinetic penetrators. The fleet adjusted. Kinetic rounds were physical projectiles. Mass drivers accelerated solid slugs to relativistic velocities. They could not be absorbed by energy fields because they were not energy. They were matter. Brutal, simple, effective against every shield system the Morthani had ever encountered. The kinetic bombardment commenced. 10,000 rounds per second, slugs the size of small ships, moving at significant fractions of light speed. They struck the human platforms with force sufficient to shatter planets. The platforms flickered. Not physically, spatially. The kinetic rounds passed through them, not around them, through them, as if the platforms existed in a slightly different spatial position than they appeared to. The rounds arrived at the visual location of the platforms and found empty space. The platforms were elsewhere, nearby, visible, but not where the weapons struck. Spatial displacement, Kreldon said. His voice had changed, tighter, higher. The platforms are not where they appear to be. They are projecting false spatial coordinates. Our weapons are hitting where the platforms look like they are, not where they actually are. The hell? I do not know, Warlord. This technology is not in any of our databases. It is not in any database I have ever encountered. Thresh-Vor stared at the display. 4,000 warships. The most powerful fleet ever assembled for a Tier 3 operation, and they could not touch the enemy's orbital defenses. Deploy matter disruptors, he ordered. Matter disruptors were the Morthani's most powerful weapon. They did not damage matter. They disrupted the molecular bonds that held matter together. A single disruptor pulse could reduce a warship to its component atoms. No shield could stop them. No spatial trick could evade them. They worked on the fundamental structure of reality itself. The fleet's matter disruptors charged. A sound filled the bridge of the eternal triumph. A deep, resonant hum that Thresh-Vor had heard 47 times before. The sound of absolute. I'll tell you certainty. The disruptors fired. The pulses struck the human platforms. The platforms activated a third defense. Not absorption, not displacement, refraction. The disruptor pulses hit the platforms and split, fragmented into harmless subpulses that dispersed in random directions. The platforms were not blocking the disruptors. They were bending them, altering their vector through a manipulation of fundamental forces that the Morthani did not understand. Silence on the bridge of the eternal triumph. 60 million Morthani soldiers, 4,000 warships, the most powerful military force in galactic history. They had fired 3 types of weapons at stationary orbital platforms. None of them had worked. Thresh-Vor had never retreated. Not once in 47 victories. Not once in 11,000 years of Morthani military history had a warlord ordered retreat. The doctrine did not allow it. Victory was certain or the operation did not proceed. There was no middle ground. But the doctrine assumed perfect intelligence. The intelligence had not been perfect. Warlord, Kreldon said, I am detecting launches from the planet's surface. Multiple vectors, not ballistic, not any classification in our database. The display updated. Thousands of contacts rising from the human homeworld, not from military installations, from everywhere, cities, oceans, mountains, desert regions. Thousands of launches from civilian locations. What are they? Thresh-Vor asked. Unknown, they are accelerating at rates that exceed our propulsion capabilities. They are not on intercept courses. They are dispersing, spreading out in a pattern that... Kreldon stopped. Is that what? Thresh-Vor demanded. They are forming a sphere around us, Warlord, the same formation we used to enclose their planet. They are mirroring our tactic. Thresh-Vor looked at the display. The human launches had reached positions outside the Morthani fleet. Thousands of objects, small, individually insignificant, but arranged in a perfect sphere that enclosed the entire Morthani formation. The humans had been surrounded. Now the Morthani were surrounded. Are they weapons? Thresh-Vor asked. I cannot determine. Their energy signatures are unlike anything in our records. They are emitting on frequencies we have never observed. I cannot classify them as hostile, defensive, or neutral. Open communications, Thresh-Vor said. I want to talk to them. A channel was opened, broadcast on all frequencies. Standard Morthani demand for submission. This is Warlord Thresh-Vor of the Morthani Supremacy. You are engaged with a superior force. Surrender your weapons and submit to Morthani authority. Resistance will result in your annihilation. The response came 11 seconds later. Not in a language the Morthani had prepared for. Not in any of the human languages they had studied during 17 years of observation. Imperfect Morthani. Warlord Thresh-Vor, this is Earth Defense Command. We have been waiting for you. Thresh-Vor felt his secondary heart stutter. Waiting. They had been waiting. For how long? Thresh-Vor asked. 17 years. Since your survey vessel first entered our system, we detected it the moment it arrived. We have been preparing for this day ever since. 17 years. The same 17 years the Morthani had spent studying humanity. The humans had been studying the Morthani. What is your intention? Thresh-Vor asked. Our intention is to demonstrate that your intelligence assessment of our species was incorrect. You classified us as Tier 3, pre-warp, limited threat. You allocated 72 hours for our conquest. The voice paused. Your fleet will not be here in 72 hours. The human objects surrounding the Morthani fleet activated. Not as weapons, as sensors. Each one generated a field that penetrated Morthani hulls, shields, and systems. They scanned, mapped, analyzed. Every ship in the fleet was being examined at a level of detail that the Morthani had never experienced. Warlord, they are scanning our ships. Internal systems, weapon configurations, shield frequencies, crew positions, they have complete penetration. Can we jam them? No, their scanning technology operates on principles we do not understand. We cannot block what we cannot perceive. Thresh-Vor watched the scan data appear on his own displays. The humans were not just scanning. They were feeding the data back to the planet's surface. A real-time intelligence gathering operation that was stripping the Morthani fleet of every secret it possessed. He understood now. The 17 years of observation had not been the Morthani studying humanity. It had been humanity allowing the Morthani to study what humanity wanted them to see. The pre-warp technology, the limited military, the primitive defenses, all of it, a performance, a mask, carefully constructed to produce exactly the intelligence assessment the Morthani had produced. Tier 3 low threat, 72 hours. The humans had written the Morthani's intelligence report for them. Krelden recalculate the certainty matrix. Krelden's hands were shaking. Morthani did not shake, but Krelden was shaking. I cannot, Warlord. The certainty matrix requires accurate intelligence input. Our intelligence input was false. The matrix is invalid. The probability of victory. Unknowns. Give me an estimate. Krelden looked at him. His compound eyes were wide. The color had drained from his carapace. Based on observed enemy capabilities, the probability of Morthani victory is below 1%. Below 1%. 28,164 victories. Built on a doctrine that required 99.99999% certainty. Below 1%. Warlord, Krelden continued, I need to report something else. The scan data the humans are collecting, it is not just for intelligence. They are using it to calibrate weapons. And calibrate weapons against what? Against us specifically. They are tuning their systems to the exact specifications of our ships, shield frequencies, hull composition, system vulnerabilities. They are building a firing solution for every vessel in this fleet. Thresh-For looked at the display, 4,000 ships, each one surrounded by human sensor nodes, each one being measured, analyzed, and targeted with individual precision. The humans had not been surprised by the Morthani attack. They had been waiting for it. They had prepared for it. They had designed their entire defense around it. This was a trap, Thresh-For said. Yes, Warlord. From the beginning. Yes, Warlord. The moment our survey vessel entered their system, they knew we would eventually attack. They had 17 years to build the perfect countermeasure, and they used our own intelligence gathering to ensure we would attack exactly as predicted, with exactly the force we brought, at exactly the time we chose. Thresh-For understood the depth of it. The humans had not just defended against the Morthani, they had manipulated them, guided them, led them to this exact moment with this exact fleet in this exact formation. The Morthani War Doctrine's first axiom, know your enemy completely before engaging. The humans had turned that axiom against its creators. They had made sure the Morthani knew them completely. The version of them the Morthani were meant to know. Options, Thresh-For said. We can attempt to retreat, but the human sensor sphere will track our withdrawal vectors. If their weapons are as capable as their defenses suggest, they may be able to engage us during transit. We can attempt to fight, but our weapons have proven ineffective against their defensive technology, and they are calibrating offensive systems specifically for our ships. We can attempt to communicate, negotiate, but the Morthani doctrine does not allow for negotiation with inferior species. Thresh-For looked at Krelden. We are not facing an inferior species, are we? Krelden said nothing. The answer was obvious. The human transmission came again. Warlord Thresh-For, we have completed our scan of your fleet. We have identified 4,712 critical vulnerabilities across your formation. We have calibrated our weapons to exploit each one individually. We can disable your fleet in approximately 4 minutes without destroying a single vessel. 4 minutes, the same duration the Morthani had allocated for the first phase of humanity's destruction. You claim to be able to disable 4,000 warships in 4 minutes, Thresh-For said. Demonstrate. Choose one ship, any ship in your fleet. We will disable it. You will observe the method. Then you will decide whether to continue this engagement. Thresh-For considered. If the humans were bluffing, calling it would expose them. If they were not bluffing, one ship was an acceptable cost for information. Vessel designation Kren 7, disable it. Kren 7 was a standard Morthani warship, 12 kilometers long, full combat configuration, shields at maximum, crew of 15,000. The human sensor nodes around Kren 7 shifted, reoriented, focused. A beam of light connected the nodes to the ship, not a weapon beam, something else. A thread of energy so thin it was barely visible. It touched Kren 7's shield. The shield did not absorb it, did not deflect it, did not interact with it at all. The beam passed through the shield as if it did not exist. It touched the hull. The hull did not stop it. It passed through the hull, through the interior, through every system, every compartment, every deck. A single thread of energy that moved through a 12-kilometer warship like a needle through fabric. Kren 7 went dark. Not destroyed, not damaged, dark, every system offline, every light out, every function ceased. Ship hung in space, inert. a dead hulk with 15,000 living crew members trapped inside. A total time 2.3 seconds. The bridge of the Eternal Triumph was silent. "We call it a neural disruption thread," the human voice said. "It propagates through matter without interacting with it until it reaches electronic systems. When it contacts circuitry, it induces a cascade failure. Every electronic system on the ship shuts down simultaneously. No damage to the ship itself, no harm to the crew, but the ship is completely disabled until its systems are manually restarted. A process that takes approximately 72 hours per vessel." 72 hours. The exact duration Thresh-Vor had allocated for the conquest of humanity. The humans had designed their weapon to match his timeline. "This technology is not possible," Krelden whispered. "Energy does not behave that way. It cannot pass through matter without interaction." "It can," the human voice said. "You simply have not encountered it before. There is much you have not encountered before, Warlord. Your intelligence was incomplete because we made it incomplete. Your models were wrong because we made them wrong. Your certainty was manufactured by us 17 years ago." Thresh-Vor stood motionless on the bridge. 28,164 victories, each one built on the same foundation: perfect intelligence, perfect calculation, perfect certainty. The foundation was false. Not because the Morthani had failed, because the humans had made them succeed at the wrong thing, had fed them a picture of reality that was precise in every detail and completely fictitious in every important respect. The Morthani had not miscalculated. They had been taught to miscalculate by a species they had classified as Tier 3. "You manipulated our intelligence for 17 years, Thresh-Vor said. "Oh yes. You allowed us to observe your planet, your technology, your military capabilities. Oh yes. You constructed an entire false civilization for us to study. Not constructed, curated. The technology you observed was real. It was simply not our only technology. The military you cataloged was real. It was simply not our only military. We showed you what we wanted you to see, and you believed it. Because your doctrine tells you that intelligence is objective, that data does not lie, but data can be curated. Intelligence can be sculpted. And a species that has spent 11,000 years winning wars through perfect information can be defeated by imperfect information that is perfectly designed." Thresh-Vor had no response. "You are not the first empire to underestimate us," the human voice continued. "You are the 14th, you will not be the last. Every empire that has encountered humanity has made the same mistake. They looked at our world, our numbers, our visible technology, they classified us, categorized us, calculated their certainty, and they attacked." "What happened to the other 13? Thresh-Vor asked. 10 of them are no longer empires. 3 of them chose to talk before they attacked. Those 3 still exist. They are our allies now." Allies? The Morthani did not have allies. They had subjects, conquered peoples, subordinate civilizations. The concept of alliance was foreign to Morthani doctrine. But the concept of defeat was also foreign to Morthani doctrine. And defeat was 11 seconds away. Thresh-Vor faced a choice that no Morthani warlord had ever faced. Retreat. The doctrine did not allow it. 11,000 years of military tradition held that retreat was impossible because the certainty matrix made defeat impossible. If the matrix was correct, victory was certain. If the matrix was incorrect, the operation should not have been launched. But the matrix had been incorrect, not through Morthani error, through human manipulation. The doctrine had no provision for this scenario, an enemy that weaponized the certainty matrix itself. "Warlord," Krelden said quietly, "I need to inform you of something I discovered during the scan. The human sensor nodes are not just around our fleet, they extend throughout this star system, and beyond." "Beyond?" They have sensor coverage of a sphere approximately 2 light-years in radius. Every ship, every probe, every object within 2 light-years of this planet is being tracked, including our transit wake. They know exactly where we came from. They know the vector back to Morthani territory. Thresh-Vor felt the implications settle. If we retreat, Krell continued, they will know our point of origin. They will have complete scan data on our fleet, our technology, our capabilities, our vulnerabilities. Everything we sought to learn about them, they have learned about us in 4 minutes. The mirror, the humans had mirrored the Morthani Doctrine. 17 years of intelligence gathering, complete analysis of the enemy, total prep. Aeration before engagement. The humans had done to the Morthani what the Morthani had done to 63 other species. Except the humans had done it better. Warlord, I am receiving a priority transmission from the Supremacy's Inner Council, Krell said. They have detected the human sensor sphere from Morthani territory. Long-range observations suggest the sphere has been expanding for approximately 16 years, growing slowly, invisibly. It now covers a significant portion of the region between Morthani space and human space. The sphere was not just around the fleet. It was a region-spanning intelligence network that the humans had been building for 16 years, right under the Morthani's nose. While the Morthani were studying humanity, humanity was building an intelligence web that now enclosed the space between the two civilizations. The Morthani had walked into a web that had been spinning for almost 2 decades. And they had not seen a single thread. Transmit the Council's message, Thresh-Vor said. The message was from High Counselor Vrenmoth, the eldest member of the Supremacy's governing body, 14,000 years old. She had overseen more conquests than any living Morthani. Warlord Thresh-Vor, the Council has reviewed the data from your fleet scan. We are aware that the human sensor network has penetrated Morthani territory. We are aware that our intelligence on humanity was compromised. We are aware that the certainty matrix was manipulated. Pause. The Council has convened an emergency session. We are evaluating options. In the meantime, you are authorized to take any action you deem necessary to preserve the fleet and protect Morthani information. Any actions? The Council had given Thresh-Vor authority that no warlord had ever possessed. Authority to deviate from doctrine, authority to retreat, authority to negotiate. The situation was unprecedented. Thresh-Vor opened a channel to the Human Defense Command. Earth Defense Command, this is Warlord Thresh-Vor, I am requesting terms. Silence on the channel, 11 seconds, the same 11 seconds that had preceded every human response, as if they had pre-written every possible reply and simply selected the appropriate one. Warlord, your request is noted. Before we discuss terms, you should know that your fleet's scan data has been transmitted to a location outside this star system. Even if you destroy your ships, the information already exists beyond your reach. Your technology is no longer a secret. Thresh-Vor absorbed this. The scan had taken minutes. The data had already been transmitted. The humans had not waited for terms. They had secured the intelligence before negotiations began. Efficient, thorough, inviolable. What terms do you offer? Thresh-Vor asked. Your fleet will withdraw from this system. You will return to Morthani territory. You will not attack human space or human interests. In exchange, we will allow your withdrawal without engagement. We will not pursue your fleet. We will not use the scan data to develop offensive capabilities against the Morthani Supremacy. And if we refuse, then we will disable your fleet. 4 minutes. No damage to vessels, no harm to crews, but your ships will be inert in this system for 72 hours, during which time we will conduct a more thorough analysis, and the terms we offer afterward will be less favorable. Thresh-Vor looked at the display. 4,000 ships, 60 million soldiers, the most powerful fleet the Morthani had ever assembled for a single operation. Disabled in 4 minutes. Without a single shot fired in anger. By a species the Morthani had classified as Tier 3. Accepted, Thresh-Vor said. The Morthani fleet will withdraw along the following vector. Any deviation from this vector will be interpreted as a hostile act. You have 30 seconds to begin your departure. Thresh-Vor gave the order. 4,000 warships turned, pointed at the vector the humans had provided, entered transit. The fleet disappeared from the Sol system. The last thing Thresh-Vor saw before transit took hold was the planet below, blue and white, clouds swirling across its surface, cities glowing on the night side. It looked the same as it had when he arrived. It looked like a Tier 3 world. It was not. The Morthani fleet returned to Supremacy territory in disarray. Not physical disarray, the ships were undamaged, the crews were unharmed. The disarray was psychological, doctrinal, existential. 28,164 victories. 1 defeat. The first defeat in 11,000 years. The Inner Council convened for 7 consecutive days. The sessions were classified at the highest level. No records were kept. No transcripts were preserved. The only outcome that became public knowledge was the Council's final declaration. The Morthani Supremacy would not attack Earth. Not because they could not, He Council's analysis concluded that with sufficient force, sufficient preparation, and sufficient intelligence, the Morthani could eventually overcome human defenses. But the cost would be extreme, and the certainty matrix could never be trusted again when applied to humanity, because humanity's primary capability was not their technology. It was their deception. The Council declared humanity a Tier 0 species, a new classification, created specifically for humanity. Tier 0 meant that no certainty matrix could be generated, no probability of victory could be calculated, no attack could be authorized under existing doctrine. Because the doctrine assumed that intelligence was objective. And against humanity, intelligence was a weapon. Thresh-Vor was not punished for the defeat. The Council's analysis concluded that no warlord could have succeeded against an enemy that had spent 17 years manufacturing a false intelligence profile. The failure was systemic. It was the doctrine itself that had been defeated. The doctrine that had won 28,164 wars. Lost one. To a species it had dismissed as negligible. In the years that followed, the Morthani Supremacy changed. Slowly, painfully. 11,000 years of tradition did not bend easily, but it bent. The war doctrine was revised. New axioms were added. Intelligence can be manipulated. Certainty can be manufactured. The enemy that shows you what you want to see is more dangerous than the enemy that hides. Other empires learned of the Morthani defeat. The information spread, not from Morthani sources, from human sources. The humans had shared the engagement data with their 3 allies. The allies shared it with others. Within a decade, every major civilization in the galaxy knew what had happened in the Sol system. A Tier 3 species had defeated the Morthani Supremacy. Without firing a weapons. By making the Morthani believe they were facing a Tier 3 species. The galaxy began to look at humanity differently, not with fear, not with respect, with caution, with the understanding that what humanity showed you was not what humanity was, that the visible surface of human civilization was a curtain, and behind the curtain was something no one had seen clearly. Not yet. Some empires chose to approach humanity diplomatically. They sent ambassadors, scientists, cultural attaches. They sought to understand what lay behind the curtain through peaceful means. 3 of these diplomatic missions succeeded. The ambassadors returned with limited information, enough to know that humanity was more advanced than they appeared, not enough to know how much more. Other empires chose a different approach. They sent spies, probes, covert surveillance teams. They attempted to do what the Morthani had failed to do, see behind the curtain without humanity's knowledge. These missions failed. Everyone's. The spies were detected before they entered human space. The probes were intercepted before they reached the outer planets. The surveillance teams were identified, tracked, and returned to their senders with a polite note. We see you, we have always seen you. Please do not do this again. The notes were written in perfect linguistic form, whatever language the sending species used, whatever cultural nuances would be most effective, tailored, personalized, demonstrating a level of understanding that went beyond intelligence gathering and entered the realm of intimacy. The humans knew everyone. Everyone did not know the humans. This was the new reality of the galactic landscape. A species that had been dismissed as primitive had revealed itself as something else entirely, not superior, not invincible, but unknowable, unpredictable, capable of defeating the most powerful military in history by making that military defeat itself. The Morthani Supremacy endured. It recovered from the defeat. It adapted its doctrine. It continued to expand, to conquer, to consume, but it never again approached a species without questioning whether the intelligence was real, whether the certainty was manufactured, whether the enemy was showing them what they wanted to see. And in the Sol system, humanity continued its quiet existence. Building, watching, waiting for the next empire that looked at a blue and white planet and saw an easy target. For the next warlord who calculated a certainty matrix and found 99.99999%. For the next species that made the same mistake the Morthani made. The mistake of believing what they were shown. The mistake of attacking a world that had been preparing for them since before they knew it existed. 28,164 victories. One mistake. The mistake was not the attack itself. The mistake was believing that 17 years of intelligence made them certain, when all it made them was predictable. This is Apex Chronicle. Humanity does not win wars. Humanity wins the moment before the war begins. We will see you in the next one.